Here on the north end of the Great Lakes and Southern is Pabst Grits Mill. In Peoria, Pabst, they had a lot of everything. And they had a malt plant, the grits mill, and then a brewery up in the Heights. This here's Great Lakes and Southern locomotive facilities. Against the backdrop is a string of industries that on the left here is Bemis Bag Company, and then we start in here with Wabco, currently Komatsu, and this plant is approximately 12 feet long. You see the locomotive facilities, and I'll come down here and you can see some of my locomotives that are lettered up for the Great Lakes and Southern. As you can tell, I've got a little bit of cat damage on the layout here. I'm starting with the tan building. And the green building, that would be, I don't know. Oh, now I remember this is O'Brien Steel. Continuing south. Here we have Crescent Electric. This building, which I had just recently worked on, is to be named Hart Carter Machinery, which in its day was a large farm equipment manufacturing company, and then later it became 4 individual companies operating inside of this plant until it burnt down in maybe the early 80s. I'm going to kind of come back for the B yard. Approximately 30 feet of yard space with the A yard and the B yard. I have kind of named this inner part the city yard, where I make up most of the switch jobs that are in Peoria. We continue on. Here's the transition from the B yard on the left to the A yard on the right. Again, you can see some Great Lakes and Southern power. This is now representing downtown Peoria. It's a little exuberant, I guess, in calling it Peoria, but they're in the heart of the A yard. This in the foreground here is the 401 Water Street, which is what it currently is known as. It originated as Larkin Soap Company, which was a very large mail order house in Peoria. You approached the Franklin Street Bridge, which still needs to be built. In the background is, on the right hand side, is Gips Brewing. On the left, Thomas Clark Biscuit Company, which made big cookies in its day. Then we start into my Commercial Street and Water Street district. Boss Gloves, Seal Test Dairy. Taking a look down here onto Commercial Street, this being Water Street. This building originated as Wilson Grocery. Eastern Beef. This building was built as you see it. I bought it at a show. I just haven't had time to kind of go in and fix it up. But I did go ahead and sit it on the layout for the time being. And this complex here is Pabst Malt Plant. And now we come into Peoria Yard for the Burlington Northern. In this section at the front of the layout, this was originally the CB&Q alley tracks, which BN, when they took over, they ran it as well. Customers were far and few in between, though I've kind of got this modeling as if things were still really on the good side. And then this here is it's kind of a kit bash job that a friend of mine did, trying to replicate the Builtwell Woodwork Company, which was located on between Adams Street and Washington Street. The other end of the Burlington Northern Yard in Peoria, or in the background, you see the start of ADM in Peoria, which originated as Hiram Walker's, which in its day as Hiram Walker's was the world's largest distillery. And I don't know if this fact is known much outside of the Peoria area, but they collected more federal taxes from the alcohol that was made at Hiram Walker's than the rest of the country put together. So it's actually the Peoria district. So all of the distilleries and the breweries within Peoria generated more tax money than the rest of the country. It's kind of an interesting fact. As we continue into the southern end of Peoria, we come up to Caterpillar Rubber Facility. And in the back is a Y that goes back into Bridge Junction across the Illinois River to go over to the PMPU, East Peoria, Creve Coeur, Pekin. As we continue around, we come into the Darth Street area. This area here in the back is going to become National Distillers, which was located in this end of town. As we come across Darst Street in the south end, we now come into Adams Street Yard for the Chicago Northwestern. Commercial solvents in the background. My aisle space is kind of limited here, so I can't really get the perspective I want. This is kind of a freelance company here. This is my American Bounty Frozen Foods. This end is the shipping or receiving and manufacturing. American Bounty Frozen Food shipping. This area back here, Iowa Junction, so where the M and St. L would have come in. My second helix, some of my rock work. As I said on the first tape, I pretty much use a tablespoon to carve in pretty much all the details that I have in the rock work. We now enter Bartonville, Illinois. So Northwestern's bridge on the Southern Illinois line as they cross over. And we come into Collier Yard. And in the background is a somewhat exaggerated Keystone Steel and Wire. There's a bit of staging below. 13 tracks, approximately 20 feet long. So we come into a little bit more of the model portion of Keystone. While I'm in N scale, this is an HO Sidem building. I did a little bit of extra cutting on and did a little rusting up. Just south of Keystone, I've modeled my Laidlaw pipe and tube. And then we come into Allied Mills, Wayne Feeds. And here you can see E.D. Edwards power plant. It's more or less no longer in Bartonville. This is on its way. This is Orchard Mines. As you continue through the wall, you would enter into Mapleton. This concludes my tour.